So now we're going to get back to the name players again. Although this is one name that has sort of faded from memory. The next game involves a player named Jester. Part of NvR, the same clan that Rekrul was a member of that we watched earlier today. Jester is a real name has Chris Kerr. He's an old school player. He was one of the 5 to represent the United States in the first WCG ever in 2000, the World Cyber Games Grand Challenge in Korea. He was quite close to another player called Sindrid. They oftentimes would play in 2v2 tournaments like the Recon 2000 event together. Overall, a very solid player, and during especially the pre-Brood War days, he was one of the top players of the scene. So at this point in time, he's starting to fade a little bit, but up until this point, he'd always been, like I would say, within the top 10 of American players that had existed. So I'm going to go ahead and load up this replay. Yeah, sip of something real quick. Alright. So without further ado, Jester versus Bluewolf on Lost Temple. So we have here at the noon position NvR Jester. And we have here at the yellow position, at the 3 o'clock position, myself playing under the Smurf UJ Knight. Very common to Smurf and new ladders at the time. You didn't have quite the established name presence, and there was no real reason to play under your name if you didn't want to, because there was no tournament rules that forced you to do so. And if you played under a Smurf name, you can oftentimes get the one up on an opponent since they wouldn't know how you played. So while this game gets started, I'll introduce the players in a little more detail. So Jester was 15th place finish in this tournament, so that was good for, I think it was, I can't remember what the breakdown is. It might have been $150. There's a breakdown on the Team Liquid thread that I'll link you to in the wiki. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, he's one of the 5 USA players that qualified for the first WCG Grand Finals in Korea, World Cyber Games. And his average APM through all the replays was 163. And you just saw there that he did the Vespian Gas, where he built that with his 10th drone, canceled it, and allows him to build one more drone than he normally would be able to. Because that one supply was taken up by the Vespian Gazer at the time before he canceled it. And he's going to go with a 10 expand here. Meanwhile, it is likely that I'm going to be building a second gateway and going with a 9-gate, 10-gate. So you can notice that this second gateway is being built on 10. 9-gate, 10-gate is very popular, especially against Zerg opponents at this time period. So I'm going to introduce Jester a little bit more. So 163 on average. And not only that, but it's the only game I have against them. So he is playing at 163 APM this game. I have a few photos of what he looked like. Jester is the one on the right of these two, the one on the left being Sindrid, and this is from the World Cyber Games Challenge in 2000, the finals for the United States that happened in Times Square in New York. I also have the previous picture that had pillars in the center, and you can notice Jester there on the right. This was also at the WCGC, the World Cyber Games Challenge, all of them hanging out together and having a good time. So very important player, very into the scene, old school talent like you wouldn't believe. So that is Jester. And the 9-gate, 10-gate is about to kick off here. So the 9-gate, 10-gate's main approach is no gas, very early gateways, build lots of zealots, kill the Zerg expansion. That's all it does. And the Zerg is trying to get their pool, but because they went expansion first, which is very common, they would not normally have defenses to be able to hold against this. And you also had to have a single probe. So that scouting probe is very important to keep alive, because it takes 3 zealot hits to normally kill a Zergling, but 2 zealot hits and an attack from the probe will kill a Zergling. So that probe helps save your zealot 1 attack to kill a Zergling. So while this is going on, and while this push is going on, as I think I'll wait a little bit before introducing myself, actually, because these Zerglings are about to pop, and it looks like there's going to be a counter-action to this attack. And you notice he targets the probe first. He wants to get that probe out, force more zealot attacks to kill a Zergling. very important that he did that. You know, quite a good micro move on his part. These sunken colonies look like they may finish. I'm trying to micro these zealots as best I can, trying to keep them alive. One zealot falls. A second zealot will fall. The sunken colony will not fall and is actually going to hold it off. It looks like Jester has held quite admirably. Both of these barely staying alive. One of these was just, wow, that must have been alive with only 1 HP and probably regenerated back up to 2. That's a shame for me. So these Zerglings are now going forward. I'm going to have to try to desperately hold at my ramp. There's not much else I can do. And Jester is now free to, at any moment now, switch from being a defensive position into going to a more macro one. He's supply capped at the moment, but I'd assume that once his Overlord pops, he's just going to build a ton of drones and start to saturate this base that he has now established. Meanwhile, I have sacrificed a lot. I've just now got my Vespene up from having to delay that, putting on all that pressure. And I'm having to build a Protoss Forge because I need to be able to protect against a quick Hydra follow-up. Which should be coming, because I won't have anything else like Dragoons with range for a little while yet. So now that the things have quieted down a bit, and both of us are now developing our strats a bit more, it looks like he may go ahead and poke forward, and he may catch this probe out. Yep. Ooh, probe mixed through. You're a probe. This is actually very crucial. It does give me a little bit more insight into like his current drone count as to what he might have been doing with his resources and making sure he's not going for some type of insane all-out Zergling push. But I'll go ahead and introduce myself as the yellow Protoss, who is moving out for some reason. Why am I moving out? So the yellow Protoss moving out with a few zealots there is Bluewolf. Again, the stepping stone for better players. A mid-tier player from 2002 at the time, who ended up playing in this ladder itself and qualified in the top 64 for it, and eventually would also play in the LAN event that CompUSA would hold and get 10th there. Playing with 119 average APM in this particular game, I am playing with 124 APM. So it looks like things have calmed down a little bit more. So again, a very high prize pool for this event with the $20,000. It's, I had mentioned before, Jester and Sindrid having played together in a 2v2 tournament like the Recon 2001. The Recon 2001, top 32, and top 64 was the one. So yeah. The end results were top 64 made to the bracket stage. I made to top 32. And if you look inside, the other thing is that the listing there is for the ladder. The CompUSA held 2 different events. This event was for the 20K online ladder. The Million Man LAN placement is for another event they held in Kentucky. So not an error in terms of the final results on that page. But rather the fact that CompUSA held 2 different events this year. And in the online portion of it, I made the top 64 for the bracket, but lost in the round of 32. Meanwhile, in the LAN event, made 10th place. So it looks like most everything else is pretty standard right now. There is a Corsair going out. Going a Corsair is actually pretty common early in this matchup. It gives you scouting information into your opponent. So right now I have very little clue what he's going for. Is he going for mutas? Is he going for lurkers? Is he going for hydras? This Corsair is mainly built to pick off straggling overlords and to give me information as to what build he's going for. That's why I know what to do to counter it. Scouting information very important, as playing blind is very difficult to do. And this is basically the other thing you get with it, is oftentimes when you build that single Corsair, you can get 1 or 2 Overlord kills, so while it costs you a bit of an investment to make it, you will oftentimes get some of those resources back. And since he was indeed going for mutas, I can now continue to use this Scargate to continue to pump out more Corsairs. So seeing these going from mutas, I'm also going to try doing to do a little bit of an attack, a timing attack with my army. I realize the mutas are not out yet, and I'm going to try to hit before they are out, try to see if I can do some damage with my ground army that would be mostly useless against the mutas themselves. So there's not a whole lot of defenses here. The Zerglings are flooding in though. I think I am +1 at this point. Yeah, so +1 means that they only take 2 hits to kill a Zergling, which is very effective. But it does look like this attack may not be able to punch through. There looks like there's just slightly too many Zerglings here, but they are losing drones. So his looks like this. It looks like this will be cleaned up, but at the same time, it looks like Jester would have lost most of his drones at his natural base here. Indeed so. So units just simply filing in. Are any of these mutas yet? Nope, just all Zerglings. That's all he's using to try to clear this up. These 5 drones go back to work. And it looks like he's going to try for a follow-up attack, utilizing these Zerglings against the Dragoons, but it looks like there's enough Dragoons here to hold and push them away. So second gateway being added, still building Corsairs, as I'm still expecting mutas at some point. It looks like there's a Queen's Nest, which is unusual, and he's actually going for a Zerg Hive at this point. Mutas are out on the field, and another Zerg Creep Colony being added. Likely is for an additional level of defense, which is going to become a sunken. Mutas fly in, start to harass the mineral line. This tower is not quite enough to cover the entire line itself, but the 2 Corsairs should be able to chase them away. And things have settled down once more. So for those who wanted the information on these players again, this is Jester's player card. Again, 15th place finish in this tournament, which was a decent showing, but he was also one of the 5 USA players to qualify for the first WCG World Cyber Games Finals back in 2000. And playing in this CompUSA ladder in 2002, trying to qualify for the top round of 64 to try to get a piece of that $20,000 prize pool. So these Corsairs are picking off these Overlords, trying to supply cap Jester as much as possible, which he is now. And it looks like there's going to be another engagement here of Zergling versus Zealot and Goon. It's looking like he will be able to hold again with a decent amount of losses, but he is supplied cap, which is going to make reinforcements much more difficult to occur. Of course, as units die, he'll be able to build more of them. The Corsairs just going to town, killing any Overlord they can get their hands on. So Jester is now going with a counterattack. He figures my forces are out of position maybe because of the fact that I had just used them to attack with. And he had crushed the actual push and trying to see if maybe he can get up my ramp. Maybe I am doing something he can do damage to. Maybe I'm trying to expand, and while I'm trying to expand, he can kill the probe that's trying to expand or kill the expansion itself. And it doesn't look like he's going to be able to make it up. So these Corsairs still giving him tons of pain in terms of trying to get units out. Just denying him the food that he needs to be able to do things. It does look like some Zerglings coming out, a few more Overlords, still nothing much else. So all he can really do is spend his resources on upgrades as he's supply capped at 12. Those Corsairs showing that they were well worth the investment. But at the same time, I haven't expanded, so we're still on. He's still 1 base up on me. He's still in a decent disposition, and I still don't have any real counter to his ground army. So not allowing him up the ramp. Corsair still flying around trying to see if they can do any damage, pick up any overlords they're able to catch outside of the Spore Colony range. Keep him supply capped for as long as possible. So the first Reaver is out now, so this gives me an actual counter to his ground game. A way to be able to defeat the Lings that have been giving me actual trouble because of the fact that I don't have Storm and didn't have any way of splash damaging a bunch of very fast ground units. So even though he never built many mutas for my Corsairs to counter, they've still been very effective, just using them to keep him supply capped, and now trying to use that time to be able to build up into this push. So he finally has resources or a supply cap to make units with, but it's a little bit too little too late, it looks like, at this point in time, as I don't know, he's building Scourges, that'll help against the Corsairs. It doesn't look like he has anything but Zerglings coming out, and the Zerglings are not going to do much against a Reaver. Meanwhile, I'm still taking out his supply, and once the Overlords do go down, that will probably mean a difficulty for him to be able to hold on to this expansion. But there goes to my Corsair, and there goes the other one. Nope. Or maybe not. Those Scourges, I thought they had them, but I guess they got like a little bit shy at the last second. Decided they didn't want to have murder on their hands, or didn't want to suicide. So expansion has been broken there. These Zerglings doing great work against Dragoon-based army, but the Reaver doing great work in response. Shuttle does live with 9 HP left. Still no expansion from either of us. I mean, no new expansion, so I have no follow-up plan beyond this attack. In fact, I only have about 300 resources left in my main base, and not bothering to expand at this point. I feel like it's very confident this push is just going to end the game. There goes the Hero Reaver. Trying to pick up Dragoons now to try to stop the Zerglings from killing them, and trying to micro as best as I can. So I'm having to expand now. So expanding with 42 total supply, my main basically mined out. Let's see here. Jester is essentially still just building mostly Zerglings, some more Scourges to take care of this Corsair being built. This Reaver clears up the attack of my base. So it looks like it is 36 to 32 food. This Corsair will finally have its days of terror ended with 7 kills. And there went the shuttle that would have been used for Reaver transportation, therefore limiting my mobility. And Jester is trying to take a base now at his mineral only to get ready to transfer his almost mined out main himself to. So for those joining us later, I'm just going to show the title cards on as we get to the end of the game here. So again, Jester, one of the top players in the past, 15th place in this tournament. At the end, one of the 5 USA players to be in the WCG 2000 Grand Finals, and with playing with 163 APM this game, which is pretty high for an American player during this time period. And for what he looked like, he is the one on the right of these 2 pictures here. The one on the left being Sindred. And it's looking like he's starting to break through the defenses, so even though all of those defenses, those pushes have been so successful, I had expanded so late that I just have no minerals left. there isn't any real way I can even continue to afford Reaver scares for much longer. So I basically have a single Reaver that basically needs to kill every single Zergling on the map, and it doesn't look like it's going to hold. This expansion looks like it's going to fall. And that would have been it. So even though I had gained the early advantage, I hadn't tried to expand it or tried to expand upon it by taking an expansion, which is what I should have done, to ensure that I could keep momentum going. And I waited too long to expand, which allowed him the opportunity to come back as I mined out my main base. Very close game. I actually did not remember who won it, so I was surprised that he won it in the end. And that was NvR Jester, Recruel's teammate at the time.